Welcome back to the Rundown. Let's focus now on a disturbing story out of Iran, whose regime today rejected what it called interference by Sweden after Stockholm called on it not to execute Iranian-Swedish academic Ahmed Jalali. He's a medical doctor and lecturer arrested in April 2016 while visiting Iran on suspicions. He was arrested on suspicions of spying on behalf of Israel, and a tape of his supposed confessions were aired on state television. Now, he reportedly called his wife from prison yesterday, informing her that he could be executed soon. Now, that prompted the Swedish Foreign Minister, Ann Lind, to call her Iranian counterpart, Mohammad Javad ظریف, and ask for clemency, so far to no avail. And there was breaking news today about a similar case. Iran State TV announcing that detained British-Australian academic Kylie Moore Gilbert, arrested 2 years ago in Tehran and sentenced for 10 years on espionage trials, has been released in exchange for the freeing of 3 Iranians held abroad. Well, earlier I spoke about these cases with Iraj Mezdahi, an Iranian writer, human rights activist, and himself a former political prisoner, who spoke with us from Stockholm, Sweden. Iraj Mezdahi, thank you for joining us on i24 News. Could you briefly just talk about your own personal experience as a political prisoner in Iran?
Yes. Hello. Thank you for having me in your program. I was 10 years in prison from 1981 to 1991, and I was sentenced to 10 years prison. I was in Gohardash, Evin, and Qazilhisar, the notorious prisons in Tehran. I survived the cruel massacre in 1988, which in that massacre, during a couple of weeks, thousands of political prisoners were massacred by the fatwa of Khomeini. And then in 1991, I was released. In 1994, I escaped Iran through the mountain. I went to Turkey. I was arrested in Turkey with my wife and my 25 days son. We were in prison for a couple of months. Then we were released, and we came to Sweden, and now I'm a Swedish citizen also.
Right.
I'm working on human rights issues.
Now let's talk about Ahmad Jalali. Let's talk about his case, because I don't think it's received perhaps enough publicity around the world. How is it being received in Sweden? What's happening to him, and what looks like it's moving towards a possible execution?
You know, he was arrested when he went back to Iran during, a program which was working with the Karolinska Hospital in Stockholm, and he was in a mission. He was they were collaborating with each other, Iranian government and also Karolinska Hospital here, and he went there. He was arrested. You know, they wanted him to be an agent for Iranian intelligence service, that he didn't accept it. Now, he is, sentenced death, and we don't know what happened. Yesterday, as far as I know, the foreign minister, Ann Lind, she called ظریف, and she talked with her, and now the Iranian people also, and the Swedish government here in Sweden, they are worried about him and what will happen to him, because maybe they are going to execute him, and this is, what we expect now.
Right. Now, often in these cases, it sometimes seems Iran is looking for some kind of exchange in return for freeing such prisoners. There was a case now just announced today, Kylie Moore Gilbert, an Australian-British academic who has been freed in return for the freeing of 3 Iranians. Is there something, does Sweden feel that this is maybe some kind of negotiation? Does Sweden have anything it could offer the Iranians in order to get him free?
This is the policy of the Iranian regime during last 40 years. They are doing that. During 80s, from 1982 to 1992, 104 foreigners were kidnapped, and they were taken hostage in Lebanon. For exchanging with the so-called prisoners in Israel or all over the world, or also for running foreign policy of Iranian regime. Of course, last year we had with the Australian also 2 people were, released after exchange of prisoners. They were Australian, and you know which American they did. And also now I think maybe they are working on the case of Hamid Nouri. He was arrested last year in Sweden, and he's accused of being. He was in a death committee, and also he was responsible for killing thousands of political prisoners during 1988. And of course, they are working on that case, and also maybe they are working on the case of Asadullah Asadi. Now he's a terrorist. That diplomat terrorist, he was arrested in Germany 2 years ago, and you know some German and also they are arrested. They are in prison, and also they are Mrs. Fariba Adelkhah. She's arrested. She's a French scientist, and you know she had also close relation with Iranian regime, but she was arrested after being 6 months in Iran and working on the case with Iranian government or also Iranian religious institution. But she was arrested because they want to put pressure on France. You know.
Well, let me ask you, Raj, do you want to see, does the international community have to put more pressure on Iran, especially perhaps Europe, when it comes to this policy that Iran has, which really seems to be holding these people as hostages?
Sure, I want that. You know, when some people come to your country and hostage some innocent people, what will you do? Do you negotiate with them? No, nowhere, anywhere in the world. You cannot see that. Maybe during the 70s they had something like that. But you know, nowadays nobody goes to have a negotiation with the hostage takers. It's not true. They are because you give them a wrong signal, and they will do that. You know, Obama administration, they had some negotiation with Iranian regime. You know, they sent a lot of money to Iran. But what happened?
Right.
Again, some people were arrested. Some of them were working with Iranian regime. You know that Iranian, now the Americans should pay for that. Mr. Namazi, you know, he was very close to Javad Zarif, and he was lobbying for Iranian regime. When he went to Iran, you know, in a mission.
Right. All right. Obviously, there is really something besides dealing this on a case-by-case basis. It sounds like the international community has to come together and come up with some better policy on this. Hopefully, in the case of Mr. Jalaly, this will be resolved before any sentence is carried out. Iraj Mezdahi, thank you for joining us on i24news.